Waarbij we wisten dat AdLib zelf Axel Collections aanbiedt. Maar we ons ook wel de kans wilden geven om te onderzoeken wat er nog meer mogelijk zou zijn. En of er misschien andere systemen of CMS-programma's zijn die ook in aanmerking zouden komen. Aangezien we nu toch op het punt zaten om ons daar flink in te verdiepen. Vanuit het museum was heel erg de wens om een web-based systeem te gaan gebruiken, zodat je ook altijd overal toegang zou kunnen hebben tot die database. En wij wilden heel graag ook op een prettige manier de registratie van zowel de collectie als het tentoonstellingsmanagement gaan combineren. Met onze kleine handbibliotheek daarbij. Waarbij, wat nu nog niet het geval is, er gewoon één plek zou zijn waar alles te vinden is. In plaats van een collectiesregistratiesysteem in AdLib en allerlei Excel-lijsten en documenten voor tentoonstellingsmanagement. Hier leefde heel erg de behoefte aan één plek, één waarheid zo gezegd en uniformiteit. Waarbij bij ons de wens was dat het een toegankelijk programma zou zijn. Omdat we nu merkten dat vooral collega's die niet dagelijks met AdLib werken, wel moeite hadden om snel informatie te vinden. Dus dat was ook een wens voor ons. En überhaupt een professionaliseringsslag te maken en te kijken hoe kunnen we naar een modern programma dat past bij onze werkprocessen in een museum. En waarmee we ook kunnen kijken wat zijn veranderingen die over 10 of 20 jaar misschien komen. En hoe kunnen we daar eigenlijk alles al op inrichten, dat je meegaat met de tijd. Nou, hoe hebben we dat gedaan? We hebben eigenlijk ongeveer een jaar een voortraject gehad. Het begon eind 2020 met wat voorbereidend onderzoek. We hebben al eens gekeken wat zijn op dit moment grote spelers. En in januari hebben we eigenlijk een soort werkgroep samengesteld van 8 collega's. En hebben we met de afdelingen presentaties en collectiebeheer een lijst opgesteld met onze wensen. Wat moet nou eigenlijk zo'n systeem kunnen? Wat vinden we belangrijk? Gewoon even los van wat AdLib kan, maar wat hebben wij eigenlijk nodig in de praktijk? Toen hebben we vervolgens in maart 3 partners uitgenodigd. Axel, TMS, Museum Plus. Om een presentatie te geven aan die groep van 8 collega's. Dus waarin het product werd gepresenteerd. En waarin we ook allerlei vragen konden stellen. Aan de hand van onze checklist die we hadden gemaakt met eisen. Vervolgens hebben we verschillende gesprekken gehad hier intern over allerlei IT-zaken. Van wat willen we eigenlijk met de server? Willen we dan zo'n SaaS-contract, dus software as a service? Moet de server nog hier staan in het museum? Of is het eigenlijk prima als dat ook elders kan zijn? En wat zijn de dingen waar we straks op moeten letten bij het opvragen van offertes? Vervolgens hebben we allerlei demoversies getest. Dat kan ik überhaupt iedereen aanraden, omdat dat veel meer nog zegt dan een presentatie. Dat je echt zelf wat dingen kunt uitproberen in zo'n demoversie. En heel snel merkt of het je intuïtief bevalt of niet. En voor ons was eigenlijk snel de keuze van we willen voor Museum Plus gaan. Dat was onder die 8 collega's een heel duidelijke voorkeur. Wat we dan daarna hebben gedaan is gesproken met collega's van allerlei andere musea over hoe zij er nu in staan. Of zij op zoek zijn naar een nieuw systeem. Hoe AdLib bevalt. Of ze misschien al zijn overgestapt op Axel Collections. Om een beetje een indruk daarvan te krijgen. En we hebben ook gesproken met collega's die juist al werken met Museum Plus. Dus dat waren allemaal internationale collega's om te horen wat hun bevindingen zijn. Vervolgens in het najaar hebben we het contract zeer uitgebreid besproken. En uiteindelijk vanuit onze directie ook het gekregen om te starten. Dus zo'n beetje een jaar zijn we daarmee bezig geweest. Nou, waarom Museum Plus vanuit ons? Beviel direct het feit dat het een heel intuïtieve layout heeft. Een moderne look en feel. En in onze optiek heel logisch is opgebouwd. Dus dat je je informatie die je zoekt op een logische plek kunt vinden. In de verschillende modules. en de tabeloverzichten, maar ook het zoeken. En we hadden de indruk dat het heel erg is gebouwd vanuit die workflows, de processen in musea. Meer nog dan echt een archiefsysteem. En daarop dus ook wat meer aansluit bij die processen die wij dagelijks meemaken in het museum. Makkelijk zoeken vonden we een belangrijke, zowel full-text search, maar ook geavanceerd zoeken op alle mogelijke manieren. Het matchte met alle eisen die we van tevoren hadden gesteld. De export naar Excel vonden we heel belangrijk, dat erin zit en ook goed werkt. Makkelijk plaatjes toevoegen met drag and drop, afbeeldingen slepen. Dat leek ons ook echt een vooruitgang. Dan het feit dat je via een API verschillende koppelingen kunt maken naar andere programma's. En in ons geval specifiek hebben wij de wens om in de toekomst ook te werken met een 3D-inrichtingsprogramma. Nou, dat zou ook kunnen via Museum Plus. We kregen een goede indruk over zetcom. En hadden het idee dat zij vooruitlopen en heel erg bezig zijn met alle recente ontwikkelingen. We hebben begrepen van onze Belgische collega's dat er al met een Nederlandstalige interface werd gewerkt. Dat was in het begin wel een vraag voor ons, van, is alles dan in het Engels? Het Nederlands is toch belangrijk. En we hebben ook gekeken van, wat kunnen we in de toekomst misschien, als we met barcodering willen gaan werken, verplaatsingen of verbinding met een DAM-systeem, of dat mogelijk zou zijn. Tot slot beviel ons ook het feit dat je, of het nou op een iPad is of een laptop, in het depot of in de tentoonstellingsruimtes bij installaties, heel makkelijk ook de software erbij kan pakken en in de cloud aanpassingen kan doen. Nou, onze directie vond het toen ook nog heel belangrijk dat we dus nog eens navroegen wat andere collega's op dit moment doen en hoe hun ervaringen zijn met Adlib of als ze al overgestapt waren op Axial Collections. Dus we hebben verschillende gesprekken gehad. En een beetje gespart over wat zijn redenen om bij Collections te blijven. En wat zijn misschien redenen om op een ander programma over te stappen. En dat waren ook belangrijke redenen voor ons om ook eens te praten met collega's van andere musea. Waaronder nu ook aanwezig uit Oslo, collega's van het Nationaal Museum. En hebben gewoon gevraagd van hoe is het werken met dat programma? Hoe was het migratietraject? Hebben ze nog tips voor ons? En hoe ervaren zij die service van zetcom? Niet heel onbelangrijk. En dit is een beetje in een notendop wat we terugkregen. Verschillende positieve reacties op Museum Plus. Dus tevreden over de werking van het programma. Blij met zetcom als bedrijf. Tevreden met de service. Gaven aan dat problemen redelijk snel worden opgelost. Dat het feit dat er een Engelstalige helpdesk is geen probleem is. Daar hebben we naar gevraagd van hoe die ervaringen zijn. Dat ze merkten dat medewerkers van zetcom kennis hebben over specifieke werkprocessen in musea. Dat het een internationaal georiënteerd bedrijf is met grote musea. En iemand ook zei, Museum Plus is eigenlijk too big to fail. Een modern platform dat je overal kunt inzetten. En we kregen ook nog wat tips van verander niet te veel in alle standaardmodules. Zeker omdat wij een relatief kleine collectie nog hebben, 20.000 objecten, is het niet nodig om alles volledig op maat te maken. Maar hou het vooral bij die standaardmodules waarmee je al heel veel kunt. En dat ook voorkomt dat als er een update is, daar meer tijd in komt te zitten. En ze gaven ook aan van echt grote veranderingen wil in je functionaliteiten. Nou, dan moet je er wel op rekenen dat dat wat meer tijd kost. Maar over het algemeen waren die signalen heel erg positief. Wat wij zagen dus als potentiële risico's, zo gezegd, was die Engelstalige helpdesk. En dat hebben we eigenlijk proberen te ondervangen door 1 key user aan te stellen, die de vragen verzamelt en zal verzamelen ook de komende tijd. Als er iets niet werkt en gewoon het contact heeft met zetcom en ook bijhoudt van is een ticket al beantwoord, opgelost, dat dat gestroomlijnd via 1 collega loopt. Wat men nog wel spannend vond, is dat Museum Plus dus nog een kleine speler is op de Nederlandse markt. Met wel heel duidelijk buiten Nederland heel veel ervaring en veel grote partners. Maar we kwamen achter dat er eigenlijk bij ons in de regio en voor Maastricht in de EU-regio verschillende partners zijn met Museum Plus, Brussel, Aken, maar ook iets verder naar boven Kleef. Dus we hebben contact met hen gezocht. En dat zijn partners waarmee we ook kunnen praten over hoe het programma werkt en misschien gezamenlijke dingen waar je tegenaan loopt. Dan werd dus gezegd van ja, dat heel veel tijd kosten en heel veel veranderingen. Het veranderen naar zo'n nieuwe CMS. Maar één ding is mij wel duidelijk geworden in dat hele traject. En dat is dat het altijd heel veel tijd, energie en geld gaat kosten. Dus dat is inherent aan dit type software updates, of het nou is naar Axial Collections, TMS of Museum Plus in ons geval. Belangrijke tips nog als je in zo'n traject van voorbereiding zit. Was in ons geval je bewust van zijn of je wel of geen collectie online hebt. En hoe dat op dit moment met Adlib of een ander programma gesynchroniseerd wordt. Die API moet dus ook aangepast worden. We hebben dat vroegtijdig ook laten bekijken door onze software engineer. Zodat hij al een idee had van hoe ziet die API van Museum Plus eruit. En wat gaat het straks kosten qua tijd, maar ook qua geld om dat om te bouwen. Overigens is dat iets om helemaal op het eind te doen als de hele migratie is gelukt. En dan komt het hele gesprek over het contract. Hoeveel licenties, hoeveel opslag aan gigabytes heb je nodig. Nou, dat is ook belangrijk om daar lang en goed bij stil te staan. Ja, en nou ja, na dat hele verhaal, dus december vorig jaar, kregen wij dus groen licht en zijn we eigenlijk in 2022 meteen in januari kunnen starten. En heel fijn is dat we dus een Nederlandstalige projectleider kregen toegewezen vanuit zetcom. En ik wil ook graag Anneleida het stokje aan jou overdragen.
Dankjewel, Charlotte. I am indeed a Dutch-speaking project manager within zetcom, but we've had a couple of requests in the chat whether we could switch to English. So I'm going to continue in English. I hope that's okay for all the Dutch nationals among you. Charlotte, are you okay with maneuvering through the presentation and go to the next slide when I ask you to?
Yes, sure.
Brilliant, thank you. So we started actively working on the project with the Bonnefanten team in January this year. The Bonnefanten project team consisted of, I think, 5 people, the registrar collections, the head of collections, and a couple of representatives from the presentation teams. And on our side, from zetcom, we had me as project manager and various IT colleagues that joined the project as required for the project at the moment. Could you go to the next slide? Charlotte? Thank you. So what does it actually mean? What steps have we taken? As I said, the first time we met was in January 2022. At that time, the Bonnefanten Museum presented us with the data to migrate. So we got all their data tables from their previous system. And based on that, we created a migration proposal, what we call the pre-mapping document. And besides that, we agreed on a project plan, on the important deadlines and dates, etc. After that, next slide, please. After that, we set up a workshop on site in Maastricht. So I traveled to Maastricht and we spent 2 days going through the entire Museum Plus system. We looked at all the modules that were there. We looked at the workflows and the processes used in the Bonnefanten Museum, and we looked at their data. The outcome of that workshop was a document that was then turned into a concrete migration proposal, and also solutions for any gaps that were there in the system, any mismatches between the old data and the old system and the new system, so where we had to find a solution, and where we had to make adjustments in the standard modules. With that, we move forward to the next slide. And we started working on all of that. So we created the final data mapping, and once it was approved by the Bonnefanten, we went to the test migrations. We had to find solutions for a couple of areas where there is a difference in the way Museum Plus was set up and the previous system of the Bonnefanten Museum was configured. Particularly of interest here were the vocabulary module, how to deal with object measurements, object locations, and addresses and people records. But I think we found satisfactory solutions for all of them. And my personal opinion is that the migration has turned out quite nice. Can you move to the next slide, Charlotte? So after we agreed on how we were going to migrate everything, we prepared the test migration. We got a new, complete, up-to-date data set. We've run the migration, and after that, we've done various rounds of corrections to ensure that all data migrated as it should. At the same time, we've finalized the localization to Dutch, and also on that, there were multiple corrections still possible. However, moving forward, we are incorporating Dutch into the standard languages available. So this was something that wouldn't be needed for every time a Dutch client decides to switch to Museum Plus. After the test migrations, we get to the point where we are now, which is on the next slide. And that is we're in the middle of our go live, of our productive migration and the go live process. So we've done the final data migration, and we are currently working in the background of doing all the image imports and finalizing the final reports. So at the moment, the Bonnefanten Museum is in a data freeze, and we're hoping to get them out of there as soon as possible. It shouldn't be long anymore. So we've done the user training, we've set up user roles and profiles, that's all been defined. User training was done on site as well. So we spent 3 days in Maastricht together again, going through the entire system once more, checking for final errors that we needed to correct. We've done some corrections on the spot there, and yeah, my personal perspective is that it's turned out quite well. One thing that I definitely want to say is that it was really nice working with the Maastricht team, which is also very important. There was a very good personal connection, I think, but also it really helped to be on site, and it was really good that it was possible to do that all in Dutch. However, it's not necessarily a requirement. We've got many colleagues that are not Dutch speaking, and that we're able to participate in meetings in English without any issues. So I think it's a big plus, but I don't think it's a must to have the same language as your project manager. So yeah, I think from our perspective, we really love this project with the Bonnefanten Museum. There's a few bits still to come. So as I said, we're in the middle of the final migration, shortly before the go live. What is still to come is switching on the two-factor authentication, finalizing the final report and exports. And then in the next few months, the Bonnefanten will internally train their own colleagues. And then we've got one follow-up project where we will do a separate import to migrate the current addresses file from the Bonnefanten Museum. Charlotte, next slide, please. So for this, I'm going to hand back to Charlotte again. Charlotte, would you mind continuing in English as well?
Yes, can you hear me again?
Yes.
Well, at the Bonnefanten, we also agree that collaboration and the project went quite smooth. And it was nice, or is nice to work with you, Anneleide, as a project manager. Our experience so far, I already mentioned in the first part, I would always suggest to test the demo version of Museum Plus, so you can check in your own time how it works for you, to navigate through the software and to check whether it fits your demands. We've had a presentation or meeting with zetcom to discuss our wishes and specific questions. That would be my advice as well, to start with, if you're interested in switching to Museum Plus. I already mentioned, make sure you first finish your migration and then change your API. It wouldn't be advised to do the two things at the same time. And in our experience, you should plan this a lot of time for the whole project, because there are always things you don't know at the start, or well, Dominic mentioned the hangover in the beginning of his presentation. I wouldn't say hangover, but if so, we had like these very small hangovers. And then you have to adjust your planning. So it's very wise to plan everything, well, to have like a lot of time, and plan around like your big exhibitions or other projects that take a lot of time, even your summer holidays, because it takes a lot of time to do a data migration, with the whole preparations and stuff and the trainings and the workshops at first. I would advise to take a lot more time than you would expect, and to create a financial buffer if something doesn't work out as planned. In our case, it worked pretty well that we assembled a team of colleagues. Even if someone has maybe during the whole project gets another job, or leaves with maternity leave or whatever, you always have like your backups and several colleagues that are involved and aware of the planning and the whole process. I think that is good to not leave it with one colleague in the museum. We also assigned several key users. Well, one head key user, I must say, and this always depends on the size of your museum, but someone who's also possible to do like the administration tasks. And I would advise to be honest about the expectations, even with your own board or colleagues or head of other departments, because it's a lot of work and they think everything will be done in, I don't know, 2 months, but it takes a lot of time. And even in our process, which went very, very well, we will go live like end of this month, and still we know things won't run perfectly directly, because we have to start working with the program as well. And then we will find probably several small bugs or things we don't know yet. So I guess it will take us maybe another year before we feel completely comfortable with the program. And I think that's fine, because it's worth the effort to change that to a system that works better in the end. Well, at least for us. And I don't know, Dominic, if you would like to plan some time for questions right now or maybe later?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So first of all, thank you so much, Charlotte, to giving us an insight. I must say my Dutch maybe was a bit limited, but I was able to follow with my Swiss German and German. So thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you for laying it out. I fully agree that we shall all be realistic. So changing the system, as the title you chose, whenever you choose a core system of yours where you have your internal data stored, it's obviously a rather comprehensive endeavor. And you need to plan ahead. I think you guys did, and do a thorough analysis of what you want to achieve, what processes and data you want to bring into the respective system, and then also act towards a plan and stay nimble. I think you all proven that even, let's say, in post-pandemic, to ramp up a project purely virtual and then taking the opportunities to meet was a big help and a big success. And I think it was a very successful journey so far. But of course, I would like to open for the round here. Not all of us know the details, so benefit of it. And I would say we would open for questions from the room first, to you, Charlotte, and to Annalida, and to me maybe for some extent. So yes, I would open the round and invite our colleagues that are here today to raise their hands and ask questions.
And maybe it's good to tell that we have been impatient during the whole process as well at some point. And we were asking Annalida like a lot of questions. When is this coming? And when are the images coming? And when are the reports finished and stuff? And she was always like, okay, one thing at a time. We're working now at, I don't know, phase number 20 or whatever. And of course, you always want things to go to quicker. But in the end, it's the most important thing is that it is done like correctly and in order.
So we have a question in the room from Felix Tan.
Hi, good evening from Singapore. I'm Felix here. I'd like to know, can you hear me? Yep. So I'd like to know about the customization that you have done. How much customization you have done, and would that pose an issue later on if you were to upgrade your software?
Annalida?
Yes, happy to answer that. So for this specific project, we've not done that much customizations, and the customizations that have been done would not impact any future framework or system updates. If a customization would be asked for that would have an impact there, we as zetcom would always make you aware of that and always advise you on it as well. The system in principle can be customized. However, whether that is always the best thing to do really depends on the situation. And in the case of Bonnefanten, it just wasn't needed. So for this project, it wasn't really that big of a question.
Which actually means that the whole standard, well, in my opinion, that the whole standard system and standard modules offer that much that you can, that you will have like enough, and it probably won't be necessary to change a lot of things.
Sorry, but in your slides, you have workflow to align with, right? Your
Sorry?
internal workflow
Mm-hmm.
for your operations, your internal workflows will have to align with the new system, or the new system has to align with your own operations and workflow?
Yes, I'm not sure if I understand the question right, but I think you mean in the end, because, for instance, our Department of Exhibitions is not working with the CMS already. So they will have to change their work processes according to the program, and will use the module for transportations, the module registrar, a contract module. So indeed, they have to change like several steps in their workflow. In my opinion, it will be better because it's more structured than before.
But is it possible, probably this is for zetcom, is it possible to adjust the system to adapt to the local workflow?
Norbert, would you want to take that? I would then hand this over to my colleague Norbert Kanter, the head of product development here at zetcom.
Sure. The very general answer is yes, of course. Museum Plus is per se a very flexible tool and adjustable tool, and most of those customizations or adjustments are done on the configuration level. So that's very important for the long-term view. It will not prevent you from updating the system. So we can run updates even on an individual configuration which has been adjusted to your specific needs of the collection, of documentation, or specific workflows. So yes, that's the very general quick answer.
Okay, thank you.
And also, I had just out of curiosity a question for Charlotte. So the Bonnefanten is like mainly an art museum, but what was the size of the collections migrated? So how many records have been migrated, or how many digital assets, images have been migrated from one system to the other? And the second question is your collection 100% documented in the system now, or are you still working on specific areas?
Our collection consists of about 20,000 objects. I guess it was on the Leida 70 or maybe 18,000 records to migrate to Museum Plus, which is nice because during the first phase of the workshops, actually the specification workshops, you go through all these fields and discuss, for instance, whether a field is only being filled up for 3 records or something. And then we had a look at the 3 records and maybe decided to not migrate that specific field. And the images were about, do you know that, Annaleida? We just migrated.
I was just logging into the instance to check the number of records. So it's about 18,000 records that we are migrated, and images it's about 23,000, almost 24. So it's not, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Thank you, Norbert. Are there other questions in the audience for Charlotte or Annaleida?
Maybe it's good to add for the Dutch colleagues that work with Adlib at the moment. We did like a lot of work to make sure that this migration of Adlib to Museum Plus runs smoothly. And the things we encountered have been fixed, actually. in this specific process from Adlib to Museum Plus. So that's, for instance, we had some problems with the locations or some vocabularies or thesauruses and stuff. And we discussed how to migrate that the best to Museum Plus. So these things have already been done, which makes it a bit easier for other Dutch museums to follow.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. I have 2 additional questions here in the chat as well. So one question was from Ingrid Sonderen on how you guys worked around the data freeze.
Yeah, that's interesting. We saw it coming a long time ago. That's important. So we prepared ourselves for the data freeze and informed everyone on the right time on forehand. And now, if we need any changes now in Adlib, afterwards in Museum Plus, we are writing them down, of course, in one document. So we will know what to change as soon as Museum Plus goes live. And we have to add like new records, for instance, to the collection. And we have this larger registration project going on with Maastricht Ceramics, which we stopped during the data freeze because that's like 50 objects a week. So we put that on pause and we will start again after the data freeze.
And then I had a follow-up question from Pei Chi, also out of Singapore. How long was the data freeze planned on Aleida?
So originally it was planned to be 2 weeks. We are currently in the 2nd week, and actually everything is finished except for the images. So I was hoping that they would actually already be done, but that part's proven a bit more complicated than we had hoped. So yeah, we need to make a decision by the end of this week whether if the images are in there, if the data freeze can be lifted. If they're not in there, maybe the data freeze can be lifted after all, because the records have all fully migrated and that's all fine. The only thing still missing is the images. But that is something that we need to discuss with the Bonnefanten team.
Understood. So thank you so much. Maybe I can add in, as I mentioned in the beginning, now being a part of this industry for 10+ years. Of course, data freeze is always one of the major questions early on in our partnership with potential customers as well. And I typically have a good and a bad answer. Whenever you do decide to move, there might be a data freeze. It's hard to navigate around that, and obviously these systems don't go live at the same, the one doesn't stop at the same moment as the other goes live typically. So there you have to plan around that. And as Charlotte mentioned, I wouldn't be doing that in the midst of a large incoming exhibition. Obviously you need your system to be up and running. So we should always plan well within the museum. The other aspect is we have developed a number of tools also that would allow us to keep track on changes, and more important, to keep track on new entries coming in a flat structure that we could then import once the go live is performed. That can be a workaround if a data freeze should be longer than a couple of weeks, to whatever reason. And last but not least, when it comes to digital assets, obviously when you move 10,000s or at sometimes 100,000s of digital assets, so pictures, images, contracts, PDFs, whatever it is, the ingest process into a new system takes time, and it typically runs, of course, over days and sometimes weeks until everything is fully ingested into the DAMS or the Museum Plus ecosystem. So I think, again, planning is important, and then navigating around your internal high season is of a necessity. We have a couple of other questions in the chat. One was from Richard. Probably towards you, Charlotte, when you did the comparison, was it comparison between Axial Collections, TMS for Windows, or their web-based zetcom tool, or zetcom Museum Plus?
Yeah, we only orientated on web-based versions of collection management systems, so also the TMS collections.
Okay. And then Dirk asked, would it be possible to show a brief demo of the working CMS? I'm not sure if that question is would it be possible to show a demo live now today or later on? Because the answer might be twofold. Maybe Dirk, if you join in here for a second. So I would say, if it is a question, if we can show it to you individually, of course, possible.
Well, I'm here now.
Okay.
I would please show it to me now, because we don't have any view of. So we see your but we don't see any images of the working system. So if it could be possible to show it to us now, brief. I understand.
Okay, so what I can offer is I can take a shorter coffee break afterwards and make use of the time that we have on our agenda. So that I would only take a short coffee. I'm a heavy coffee drinker, but and then I would join a bit earlier to the session. Back again, I could then navigate the ones that are interested, and give you a short introduction to the tool. I think that would be the optimal for the agenda today. So then I could be getting back earlier, if that's okay with you, Dirk.
I'm okay with that. Do you have an estimate of the time?
Yes. So we plan to close the first case study about 3 o'clock, so in about 7 minutes, and then Kasera, Serafi, and myself would give you a quick update on where we are with the Culture Software Group, and then we could take the demo at about 4 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. That's good. Any other questions to my colleagues? Okay, I learned we should get some awkward silence for more than 10 seconds in order to let question raise. So if not, I would thank you guys, Charlotte and Annaleida, so much for guiding us through this process. It took you a while, it took you a lot of hard work, and I'm really excited to seeing the end result with you. So thank you so much for giving us an insight. And I would then carry on if you allow me.
Of course.
Okay, so I'll mute Stephanie. So thank you so much again, as mentioned. I am here today with several of my colleagues from zetcom, but obviously also my fellow friend Kasera from fluxguide. And I would take the next around about 30 minutes with Kasra to give you an update on the Culture Software Group, on zetcom, on our vision, and on next steps to come. As I mentioned in the introduction, obviously our museum customers both face internal aspects that I would like to answer with digital tools. The collection management being one of the central aspects, to have full control over their collections, over the digital assets and the processes surrounding the collections. But obviously, we also want to have the opportunity to interact with the public, with your visitors, whether they're on-site or digital. And that's where the Culture Software Group has a certain ambition and vision to work as a one-stop shop and to serve you guys with different type of solutions. Now, today, I would like to give you a short update on where we are as a group, what zetcom's core focus is, and then hand it over to you, Kasra, to give us some ideas about what you do with the visitors, with schools, with online visitors to the museum. The Culture Software Group is a combination of fluxguide and zetcom. It exists for 2 years now. fluxguide joined Culture Software Group a year ago, last summer. We have a clear focus on the one hand with zetcom on collections management and the online presentation of the objects with our tools Museum Plus and eMuseum Plus. And our colleagues over at fluxguide, they focus on digital visitor experience. So this is both on-site visitor experience, guiding apps, remote guiding apps, on-site challenges and the likes, but obviously also web and mobile, but going from start to end. So end to end, from the concept to development, including hardware and research. Our colleagues over at fluxguide are working with our customers, but also other museums out there not using a Museum Plus or eMuseum Plus system. I'll let you explain it. You're the hero on these topics, Kasra. I'm just doing the introduction here. But on key metrics, now together with fluxguide, we have 6 offices in Europe, the US, and are around about 100 colleagues now in the Culture Software Group with roughly 1,100 customers. They're nicely aligned across the globe, 42 countries, and we grow at a decent rate organically. I would say about 70 to 80 new clients that choose a zetcom or fluxguide product. And in certain markets, we also work with distribution partners in order to have a proper representation of the time zone and, of course, also language skills. As we have seen today, English works fairly well, but oftentimes it helps a lot being able to be native Dutch, Norwegian, or whatever it might be. So having this group of our own offices as well as distribution partners really helps us serving customers worldwide. The interesting thing also for me is to see how our projects and products are actually used by very heterogeneous institutions, ranging from very focused art or art museums to very, very heterogeneous collections, like, for example, the Australian War Memorial, or also multi-tenant applications where you would have several institutions living in the same collection management system. Very interesting, for example, in the National Museums of Norway, where we have different museums living under the same roof now, physically, but also digitally within one collection management system. When it comes to our tool, again, I think I agree with Dirk. I don't really want to bore you with slides, but I can then show it to you after the coffee break live. Nevertheless, I would like to highlight a few aspects that we feel are crucial to serve these type of customers. On the one hand, of course, it must follow a certain amount of standardization, and we choose to follow Spectrum and be 100% Spectrum compliant. I think it is without asking that the application shall run in a browser and be independent, whether you're in the office or in the home office, or if you're traveling to your exhibition, you should always be able to log in to your system. We have always been a strong advocate to be able to run our tool as a software as a service as well. Many of our museums, though they don't have a large in-house IT operations anymore, or they choose not to run hundreds of different tools in their own premises, but only choose to run a few. So Museum Plus and also fluxguide's products are then tailored to be SaaS ready whenever you choose to be, but could also be run on premise. When it comes to the devices, of course, we're device independent, so it's agnostic whether you use Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, whatever your tool supports, it needs to run a browser. As we're running in a browser, we can also be responsive, so we can run it on tablets and or notebooks and the likes. And as Felix mentioned, not all are the same. So you would obviously have a certain core set of modules that will always be the same in our product, but you can tailor it. So whenever you would have a data field catalog in your existing system or a type of metadata for your collection that we don't have, we just add it in. We customize the field catalog, and it doesn't impair the capability to update the core to receive the latest and greatest updates from zetcom. So it is a very modular and flexible product built to grow evolutively with your requirements and or new departments that would join in. I also always want to highlight that obviously sometimes it can be even a bit overwhelming having hundreds of metadata fields for certain user types or roles. And we do have a concept to have different individual data views, either data views for certain collection types like archives, but also oftentimes a data view for read-only users or certain users that work mostly with logistics, for example, and or conservation, so that we would have a tailored data set available for different users. Being in data obviously is good. It's good to have track on clean and cleansed data, but on the other hand, you also want to find it and extract it. So obviously having a wide array of search capability, both full text, expert search are part of the standard application. And I would be bold and say you will always find what you need. And you can always start being generic and get more detailed. So I must say the search is crucial to find and then export the systems, the data as you need. When it comes to export, obviously there's a whole plethora of export that our customers need. There's obviously the need to have a comprehensive integration with the Microsoft Office suite. You want to create long contracts, shipping lists, and the likes, and we feel it is very easy to just produce Office ready documents. But obviously you can also export data to into harvesting formats in JSON structures and the like to deliver to these different harvesting portals and sharing the data between systems. And then last but not least, and that has been important from the beginning when we created our web-based application, is a full and open REST API. Our system, whoever subscribes to a SaaS or has Museum Plus running internally, is also eligible to use the API in order to allow to integrate with third-party tools through the API, either through standard connectors or to custom-built connections that you can also do yourself, or your IT department could leverage the capabilities. But again, this is just a few minutes. I promised not too many slides, a few minutes on the slides about the functionality, and I will again open a short demo in after the coffee. When it comes to standards, Museum Plus follows standards. So on the one hand, we have the spectrum, but obviously we also follow closely on international development when it comes to the harvesting standards, when it comes to standards on archive documentation with ISAD, and latest is the EODEM, the Exhibition Object Data Exchange Model, that will also allow us to share and exchange metadata in terms of exhibition planning between collections management systems. And Norbert, if I'm correct, the EODEM standard was just presented at ICOM a few weeks back, yes?
Yes, absolutely. So it's a work of the CDOC committee within ICOM, and it was presented at the General Conference just a few weeks ago.
Because we always believed that it was boring keying in data, just because you live in a zetcom ecosystems, your colleagues over at another museum shouldn't be typing all that data in, so it should be easier now to exchange data when planning for international exhibitions. When it comes to presentation of our objects online, we do offer a standard solution that is then connected to Museum Plus through the API with eMuseum Plus. After this presentation today, I will also be handing out the PowerPoint slides so that you can read it in all quiet and with the necessary time. And we will also share a couple of links to these online collections that our customers have developed with us. Now, eMuseum Plus is not a bespoke website, but it is a standardized online collection opportunity that would allow us to, of course, tailor it towards your corporate identity and design. You will have a tailored welcome screen and the likes, but the basic functionality is there. If you would aim for a fully bespoke online experience, this will typically be done with a third-party agency and or consultancy. And in this case, we often, of course, work then hand in hand with our partners at fluxguide and or others to really develop a bespoke solution. While eMuseum Plus is the standardized, rather simple to implement solution if you want to present your collections online. Now I'm getting to the end of my 10 minutes, and the key aspect here is, as I mentioned, of course, solutions that are integrated through our API in order to create an ecosystem of tools, best in breed, that would work hand in hand through API. And on the one hand, we do have a set of standard integrations with systems from trusted partners. On the one hand, we have, of course, to our sister company, fluxguide, an API integration into the remote guide app of theirs, Museum Stars. But we also strongly believe that we should have other standard connectors, and I name a few. On the one hand, we do have a standard connection kit to Ortelia. Ortelia allows you to curate your exhibitions in a 3D style and way, and you can pull in data from Museum Plus directly into your virtual exhibition room to plan your exhibition accordingly without creating a physical small dollhouse model, but in a virtual space. The same goes for ArtiCheck, an app-based condition check tool that is heavily used. And also, of course, a lot of our customers have a digital asset management system already in place or plan to acquire that. And for that, we have connections 2 different vendors out there with standard integrations, allowing for a seamless translation of data between those, so that we could push metadata from the collection management into the digital asset management system and retrieve a certain amount of assets back. We also see that there is more and more the need to do long-time archiving or ultra long-time archiving. So we have connections to archiving systems. We see a lot of MailChimp integrations out there, and as I mentioned, various other DAOs systems. So whenever you have a question later, I'm happy to answer those. And if not, I would then hand it over to my colleague, Kasra. Kasra sitting in Vienna to guide us through fluxguide and your cases that you would tackle with your suite of tools.
Okay, thank you, Dominic. You can hear me? Great.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so thank you so much for the kind introduction. My name is Kasra Sarafi. I'm one of the founders of fluxguide, and as Dominic said before, this culture software group idea was to connect different companies, or let's say the best-in-class companies working in this wonderful industry we're in. And I'm going to try to share my screen. I love the idea of the group because on one hand, there is zetcom with Museum Plus, etc., which manages basically I would say, technically it's not correct, but which manages the back end, like the heart of the collection. So how to use digital in order to archive the collection, to manage exhibitions, to manage processes around it, etc., etc. on one hand. And on the other hand, with fluxguide in a group, our mission is to bring that to the front end, so to speak, how to bring it to the people, both scientific and non-scientific access, and how to present it, how to mediate this treasure all museums are sitting on, and this treasure most of the museums manage in a digital way more or less successfully and digitize, but still lacking in how to present it to visitors on site in the museum, how to present it for people at home, how to mediate it to school classes, to the educational system, etc. And to do this in a digital way on, all the devices and the channels and digital channels out there. That's more or less what we are working on. And we connect with zetcom here, of course, through the group, but also through the system, because what I think is going to be really interesting in the future is in how to connect, mediation, how to connect digital outreach of museums, more or less directly with the CMS, directly with their digital archive of the museum, in order to exploit that treasure we're all sitting on. So that's why I love this idea of the group and why we are part of the group, obviously. And what we are working on, you can see here. So how do we do this? Or just to show you some of the examples, how we're doing this. We do everything from the conceptualization up to the realization, implementation, both on stuff like this, installations on site, doing apps or media guides on site for visitors, how to use augmented reality, wearables. We also do experimental things and how to use the data that's there in order to enhance the museum visit, but as well as the experience from home. That's, of course, since COVID, a big thing. Or here, I will show you this use case in detail later on, but this is the classical example of how to use the data of the collection, how to use exhibit information in order to bring it to the visitors, both on smartphones and tablets and handout devices, bring your own device, etc. Of course, one part is also to offer navigation and orientation in the museum, just as well as mediation of the content. So that's also one thing we're doing. And we also work on how to not only to, you know, to bring the raw data to the people, but also how to bring it to the people in gamified ways, in interesting ways, in ways on, you know, using gamification, using augmented reality, using ways in, you know, how to tell stories, to do digital storytelling. That's one thing. Another thing which is really important is how to bring it in an accessible way in order to support, you know, impaired museum visitors or museum website users or target groups. So that's also one mission in how to, you know, provide this content for all people, for everyone out there. And everyone, of course, also includes children, students, school classes. So we also have several solutions in how to bring it in an educational and or in a gamified way, and to bring this cultural data and cultural knowledge we have to the different target groups. And we do this on all devices out there, on all the systems, and in very different ways, very customized ways, as well as standardized ways. And it's all about, you know, interaction, exploration, interactive ways in bringing the content to the people. We're also working on R&D projects where we try to figure out, you know, how to use new technologies and how to use all the possible devices out there. Well, we're experimenting a lot with the different ways. For example, here we work a lot of with, as I said before, gamification and how to you know, motivate people of all target groups in order to dive into the cultural heritage of the world, mediated by museums. And the raw data of this, of course, obviously is inside of the CMSs out there. And we try to connect and to that. And to summarize, I think the four most exciting topics here is, of course, apps and media guides. So if you use you know, if you provide apps to both your visitors or the people at home to mediate the content, but as well as to provide learning platforms, remote mediation, gamified education. So that's stuff that also I think is the future in terms of how to provide ways in presenting, not only presenting the content, but also make it explorable and interactively explorable in didactical and educational meaningful ways. I think that's one crucial issue here. And we also do this also, I think, should not be underestimated, to use the space of the museum to see how via exhibition installations you can use the data of your CMSs in order to present it to the people and also to the general public and visitors. And a new thing we're working on, what we call Collection Explorer. Actually, we're working on it within an R&D project, a European Union research and development project, and how to transfer the data, this huge amounts, as we heard before from the Bonnefanten, we have a lot of content, a lot of data. We try to bring in meaningful ways and to organize and to archive. And we're working on, in this project, we transform it to a product more or less, to how to tell stories, how to use digital storytelling to, for example, tell a story about how exhibits wander around the world, how they switch persons, how they finally then arrived in the museums, how to visualize and make explorable the different exhibits and of the collection, also for non-scientific target groups. So this is a really interesting and exciting topic, which is more or less on its beginning, I think. At the moment, or in the last years, the industry, as well as we ourselves, were very much focused on, like, what is the new audio guide and how can we use apps and you know, how can we extend the guiding in the museum. But I think the future will be on how can we really provide a digital room, a digital area or digital world where we can make the whole collection explorable, not only what is really exhibited out there in the real world, which is of course crucial and important, but how can we let visitors and let people dive into the whole, more or less the whole collection, and here this combination, this connection between collection management system on one side and a digital representation on the other will become crucial, and maybe will on long term or midterm redefine what the museum really is. So so that's why we're working in this area as well, and I think that's a very interesting topic. On how to connect it, I want to show you very shortly, like 3-4 minutes, one nice use case from Austria, where we tried to connect the archive with the museum. So we did a project here in Tyrol in Austria, and it began like a usual app multimedia on-site experience project. So you get a device from a museum, or you can alternatively also use your smartphone or your own tablet, your own device, and then you get a short introduction into the museum, and then you can walk through the museum with a guide. You all know, I suppose most of you have those systems in your museums, or you have at least used it once or more, so you can go through the museum. And here we took the data from the archive and presented it to the museum visitors. So you use interlocalization and stuff like that, audio mediation, all the digital assets out there which made sense to mediate to the visitors are inside of this mobile application. So that's nice. So you have 3D content, you have audio content, you have text content, whatever is there to enhance the visit. However, we added one interesting feature, was possible to collect the favorite objects in the exhibition, but not to buy them on Amazon or something, or just to collect it, but to create an own small exhibition. So the idea here was to put the visitor into the role of a curator, right, and to let the visitors create their own small exhibitions or their rooms. Basically, what you can see here is you have 3 walls, and then you can place the exhibits here onto this empty canvas at the beginning, or empty wall at the beginning. An interesting thing here is you can do this not only with the exhibits here inside of the physical exhibition hall, but you can also connect to the collection exhibits from the collection which are not exhibited at the moment. So it was possible to dive into the exhibition, to drag out exhibitions here, and to create new exhibitions. And that was one of many possibilities, one playful way in how to let the public interact with both the complete collection as well as with exhibits which are exhibited in the physical museum. And I'm going to skip this one. So yeah, and we have stuff here. So like beacons and all this stuff you probably know. And the last thing I wanted to show was an add-on of this whole project, which would not have been necessary, but it's so beautiful that and it was possible to do it. So I want to show it to you. So possible to connect here inside of this virtual room, where basically are able to continue with your work. So what she's doing here, by the way, you can do from home as well. So it's both an on-site as well as an off-site experience. But here she does it on-site, and we built this room here additionally, where then through projector technology, it's possible to literally stand inside of the room you have created, and you can continue the creation here, and you can continue to play around with a collection, play around with exhibits, and find an own personalized way in connecting to the museum and connecting to the collection. And this is what it should be about, when we're talking about doing archives, working with digital on archives. This is the end mean, right? So I mean, this is why we're doing it, and this is why I think it's an important topic to talk about. And what you saw right now was just one of many other possibilities, and we're doing this now for 11, almost 12 years. with a lot of international projects, and we do this, very customized ways, but also we have standard solutions, as Dominic mentioned before. So we do workshops on that. So we do all the stuff from conceptualization to budget planning to specifications of systems like this. We have a strong R&D, research and development background. So we're always working on the experimental stuff out there and try to how to exploit it and how to bring it in meaningful ways into the museums. That's also one significant area we're working in. But obviously, the main thing is we are the full service provider for such digital front-end solutions like apps and media guide, learning platforms, remote mediation. And now with being in the group with zetcom, with Museum Plus, the next time is to more tightly integrate all of those, this, I would say, representation or exploration layer with the collection management system in order to really exploit and to this treasure we're all sitting on. And yeah, that's basically what we're doing and what we like and what we're excited on. And I'm open for any questions or any ideas. And I would hand over to you, Dominic. Maybe you have some words to close this, and yeah, would be happy to get some feedback.
Thank you so much, Kasia, first of all, for giving us a 15-20 minutes insight into what you guys have done and are still doing. Obviously, I fully share your enthusiasm for connecting the data points. It makes perfect sense. And that's also where our departments are working hand in hand to connect the standard products between the two, but obviously also make them available in custom projects. Now, I would obviously allow again and invite the audience to ask Kasia, who's with us today, ask questions. Yeah, I would open the microphone again. Yes.
Okay, if there are no direct questions at the moment, maybe one more thing from my side. What's maybe mention worth is that we have this, you mentioned this Museum Stars system, where we are working, or we have been more or less implementing a direct interface between the Museum Plus system and the Museum Stars system. So, very basically spoken, it will be possible, or it is possible to wire an export to create a media guide directly out of your CMS data. And I think that's a really great thing to do, and that's a very new thing that's possible. And it should allow to directly connect to the visitor services directly out of the CMS. I think that's a really, really exciting topic. Share.
Okay. Well, on that note, Kasia, I again thank you so much for joining today. It was a pleasure having you with us. To the rest of the audience and the team, let me share my PowerPoint again. As promised, in the beginning of this afternoon, we'll have a second case study with our colleague Magnus Bognerud joining from Oslo to giving us an insight into how they leveraged Museum Plus to do the big move from the different premises into their newly opened national museums in the harbor of Oslo. And as I promised, there is going to be a coffee break now, about 30 minutes till the next case study. So we would gather back in at 4 o'clock Central European time. But I agreed, and I'm happy to get back in 10 minutes already. So 22:04 to give a ad hoc demo also of our Museum Plus system. So whomever would like to join Dirk and the team and me to have a walkthrough before we virtually travel to Oslo. Happy to regroup in about 10 minutes. And the others that would like to join in at 4 o'clock, you can use the same Teams link and rejoin at 4 o'clock to learn how the National Museum moved into their new premises. So thank you everyone for your attention so far, for the great questions, and I'll be back in 9 minutes with a demo, and then at 4 o'clock we'll meet Magnus. For the time being, I'll keep the room open, but I'll go for coffee. Thank you so much, and see you all in a few